You consume it daily. You go through more than you probably realize. You are literally made of it. But how much do you really know about water? Join me, Lake Storywater, and my droid, H2O, as we travel in search of the science behind water and water-related concepts. This is Story of Water. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Lake Storywater. I'm here with my droid, H2O.
Hello.
Let's start today with a few questions. How many people worldwide would you guess lack access to indoor plumbing? The answer, 4.5 billion. And how many of those don't have safe drinking water at home? How about 2.1 billion? And how long do you have to wait for drinking water? You probably don't. All you have to do is turn on the faucet and it's there, right? But here's another fact for you. For 263 million people, it takes 30 minutes to get to and from a water source. That information is according to UNICEF. Running water is something we take for granted in the US. How does water get cleaned for us to be able to drink it? How does it get to our homes? What happens after we use it? There are many questions for us to answer today, so pipe down and let's get started.
You and your puns.
In ancient times, access to water determined where people settled. At first, this meant rivers and lakes, but as settlements began to grow and extend from near these water sources, ways to get and store water needed to be developed. The earliest known wells were discovered in Israel and Cyprus and date back to around 8000 BC. Wells are dug down until they reach an underground aquifer or reservoir of water. The earliest wells only required a bucket and rope system to bring water up. The first movement of water through artificial means is believed to have occurred around 3500 BC in the town of Mohenjo-Daro in modern Pakistan. They used wells to get water, then wastewater from their homes went down covered drains to more drainage along the street. In effect, this was the first sewer system. The first pipes were used by the Egyptians about 1,000 years later. They used copper pipes to divert water from the Nile River to their farm fields. Also around this time, the Chinese used bamboo reeds as pipes to carry water to salt mines. Another 1,000 years after that, residents on the island of Crete used terracotta pipes to drain water from sinks, tubs, and even crude toilets in their homes. About 500 years later, the Greeks and Romans developed basic plumbing systems in homes similar to what we use today, including sinks, showers, tubs, and toilets, all with running water. But probably the Romans' most recognizable invention was the system of aqueducts they began construction of around 300 BC. Aqueducts used gravity to transport water from sources high in the mountain down to their cities. The aqueducts moved an astonishing amount of water. Some estimates say about 1.2 billion liters of water up to 57 miles every day. The water would collect in basins or tanks, where it would then be distributed through a system of pipes to public baths, homes, and fountains. Wastewater would be whisked away through pipes to be emptied into the Tiber River. Unfortunately, though, one of the materials used for piping was lead because of its malleability or ability to be easily molded into any shape. Lead particles from the pipes leached into the water supply, and because lead is toxic, it led to many deaths.
Fact: the word plumbing comes from plumbum, the Latin word for lead.
Sadly, lead was used in pipes for many years, and as the culprit in the recent water crisis in Flint, Michigan, it still poses a problem today for the drinking water supply. For centuries, no major advances occurred in plumbing. Cities in medieval Europe had drains running alongside and sometimes in the middle of streets that removed wastewater. Then, in 1455, cast iron pipes were used to bring water to the city of Siegerland, Germany. The first flushing toilet was invented in 1596 by the godson of Queen Elizabeth.
Fact: His name was John Harrington, and that's why a toilet is known as a John.
In 1664, King Louis XIV of France ordered a pipeline to be built to carry water from the River Seine to his palace in Versailles. A 15-mile cast iron pipeline, coupled with a hydraulic pump known as the Machine de Marly, was completed in 1684. In 1775, Scottish inventor Alexander Cumming improved upon the first design of the toilet. His toilet could refill with water after being flushed, and included an S-shaped trap to prevent sewer gas from entering the toilet. In 1804, Philadelphia became the first city to install cast iron pipes to supply fresh water citywide. A system of steam turbines was used to run pumps that pulled water from a local river. This proved to be inefficient, however, and in 1815 this system was replaced with a dam and several water wheels. Residents of Philly actually received running water before the President of the United States did. The White House didn't get indoor plumbing until 1833. In 1855, Chicago became the first city to build a sewer system. Prior to being built, wastewater was discharged into the Chicago River, which flowed into Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan was a source of drinking water for the city, so it isn't surprising to learn that thousands of people died from waterborne diseases. The sewer system consisted of a 28-mile-long canal that ended up reversing the flow of the Chicago River, so it would no longer flow into Lake Michigan. London built its first sewer system 3 years after Chicago's. Although the flush toilet was invented earlier, as we mentioned, its popularity didn't take off until the late 19th century. Hot water heaters also started appearing in homes during this time. The flush toilet needed to be connected to a sewer system, and the hot water heater thrived with a constant water supply. So these factors led to a boom in the laying of water pipelines and installation of modern sewer systems. World War II ushered in a major change for water pipes. Iron, steel, and copper were needed for the war effort, so new materials had to be used. The invention of plastics helped to address this problem. Plastic pipes were invented in 1952 and first installed 3 years later. Today, PVC, or polyvinyl chloride pipes, are now the most common in use. Approximately 1 million miles worth of pipes are buried underground in the United States.
According to my calculations, that's enough pipeline to reach the moon and back twice.
Nowadays, to get to your home, water must first be pumped from its source, which can be a lake, reservoir, river, or aquifer deep underground. In the U.S., about 2/3 of the population gets their water from a surface water source, while the other 1/3 gets theirs from groundwater. The water then goes to a treatment plant, where it is made safe to drink through a process we'll discuss in a little bit. Then, with the help of more pumps, it goes to a holding tank or water tower, so gravity can do the work of creating pressure to move water through pipes until it reaches its destination, your home. Now let's switch gears and talk about water cleaning. Some of the earliest records of methods to clean water date back to the 15th century BC. Ancient Sanskrit writings from India contained instructions on how to clean water by boiling or heating it. People didn't know it back then, but this works because it kills some viruses, bacteria, and other pathogens that can make people sick. Ancient Indians also ran water through sand and gravel filters before drinking it. In this method, particles in the water are trapped and strained out because they are too large to fit through gaps between the sand and gravel particles. Around the same time, drawings on Egyptian tomb walls showed water filtration devices in use. The device is believed to be the first use of coagulation. Coagulation is when a chemical, in the Egyptians' case, aluminum sulfate, is added to water, which then causes particles in the water to start to join together in bigger clumps, allowing them to be physically removed. Another method of cleaning water that emerged around this time was with the use of charcoal. Minoan people on the island of Crete stored water in large jars filled with charcoal. Charcoal contains activated carbon, and activated carbon is such a good filtering material because it works through the process of adsorption.
Did you say absorption?
No, adsorption, with a D, occurs when particles in a fluid bond to a substance. So in this case, particles in the water stick to the carbon while the water flows through. Phoenician sailors also used charred wooden casks to store water on their ships. By the way, absorption with a B is when particles in one substance enter another substance and are taken in by that substance. Around 500 BC, Hippocrates came up with the method of using a cloth bag to strain water. The Hippocrates sleeve, as it came to be known by, had tiny gaps between the fibers that water could fit through, but larger objects such as sand and dirt could not, so they stayed in the bag. If water tasted or smelled bad, he believed that it wasn't good to drink. By ridding the water of sediments, the taste and smell improved, meaning it was better to drink. There weren't really any advances in water cleaning through the Dark Ages. It wasn't until 1627 when British scientist Sir Francis Bacon became interested in desalinating or removing salt from seawater. He tried to accomplish this by filtering through sand. His method didn't work because the salt was dissolved into the water and therefore too small to get rid of by filtering. However, his work, combined with the growth of cities, led to a renewed interest in clean water. In 1685, Italian physician Lucas Antonio Porzio designed a filtration system that combined multiple methods. First, sediment was reduced by straining, then the remaining water was passed through two sand filters. In 1703, French scientist Philippe La Hire designed a cistern to collect rainwater that contained a sand filter. His design was also covered and raised from the ground, two additional ways to keep unwanted objects out of the water. In 1746, the first patent for a water filtration system was granted. Another French scientist, Joseph Ami, designed a filter that used wool, sponge, sand, and charcoal to remove particles from water. 4 years later, his design was made available for purchase. The first water filtering facility to supply an entire town with water was established in 1804 in Paisley, Scotland. It was built by John Gibb in order to supply his bleachery business, as well as the town.
A bleachery is a place that bleaches or whitens fabrics.
The plant used gravel and sand to filter the water. Within 3 years, the water was piped to Glasgow, 10 miles away. Shortly after this facility opened, a much larger water treatment plant opened in Paris in 1806. Water would first settle for 12 hours, allowing heavy particles to sink. Then the water would be run through a pre-filter, which was changed every hour. The water was then sent through the main filters, which consisted of sands of varying coarseness and charcoal. These filters were renewed every 6 hours. The water was moved by horse-powered pumps. A father-son team, Englishmen John and Henry Dalton, were responsible for more firsts in the world of filtration. Their company introduced the ceramic water filter in 1827. The ceramic material contained tiny pores that water could pass through, but not many larger particles, such as dirt and even bacteria. Then, in 1862, they introduced the Dalton manganese carbon filter, the first carbon cartridge filter. Combined with Louis Pasteur's work on bacteria, they were able to demonstrate that their filter was effective in filtering out these tiny organisms. A decade later, scientists Robert Koch and Joseph Lister showed that bacteria and other microorganisms in water cause disease, leading to an emphasized importance on cleaning water. In 1906, ozone was used for the first time as a disinfectant in Nice, France. Ozone kills bacteria and viruses because it is an oxidizing agent. It basically reacts with the organic material of a bacteria or virus, causing the cell membrane or outer shell to rupture and the bacteria or virus dies. Ozone as a disinfectant is still widely used, especially in Europe. In 1908, chlorine in the form of sodium hypochlorite was used for the first time as a disinfectant in Jersey City. Chlorine kills bacteria and viruses by breaking the chemical bonds in their cells, basically splitting them apart. The use of chlorine as a disinfectant has become the dominant disinfectant in the United States and has virtually eliminated cholera, typhoid, and dysentery.
Reminds me of the Oregon Trail computer game. How do we know the water that comes out of our tap is safe to drink?
Good question, H2O. Before water gets pumped to our homes, it goes through a multi-step process using many of the previous methods. Although the actual process varies by water treatment plant, here are the most common steps. Number 1, coagulation and flocculation. As previously mentioned, coagulation is when a chemical is added to the water to get smaller particles to clump together. Flocculation is when the water is stirred or mixed to encourage the smaller clumps to come together to form even bigger clumps called floc. 2. Sedimentation. The water settles so the floc sinks to the bottom and can be separated from the water. 3. Filtration. The water is then passed through multiple filters consisting of sand and charcoal. 4. Disinfection. Chlorine is added to kill any remaining microorganisms. Some water treatment plants also use ozone during the process as an extra precaution. Fluoride is also added to many water supplies before it is pumped to the public to help prevent tooth decay.
What happens to water after it goes down the drain once you use it?
Another good question. For those that aren't connected to a sewer system, it goes to a septic tank. However, most Americans are connected to a sewer system. All the drains in your home lead to one large pipe that connects to a larger pipe that runs below the street. The pipe under the street leads to a larger pipe that collects water from multiple neighborhoods. This process continues until all pipes lead to a big pipe that connects to a wastewater treatment facility. The wastewater treatment facility cleans the water so it can be safely returned to the environment. There are typically 4 steps that occur in wastewater treatment. 1. Screening. Larger floating objects are removed from the water through filtration. 2. Primary clarification. Water is allowed to settle so solids sink to the bottom, while grease and oil float to the top. The solids are pumped away while the grease and oil are skimmed off the surface before the water moves on. 3. Biological treatment. Water is aerated, allowing bacteria in the water to break down remaining organic matter. 4. Disinfection. Any remaining microorganisms are killed through the addition of chlorine or another disinfectant. Water is then drained to a nearby water supply or pumped underground. This completes the cycle of water usage, as that newly cleaned water is now available to be used for drinking water.
So the water you flush down your toilet one day can be the same water that you fill a glass of water with from your tap?
I know, it sounds gross at first, but rest assured, it has been cleaned once before you use it and once after you use it. High EPA standards for tap water keep the water supply safe. But if you are still concerned, there are various carbon filters available for purchase that either attach to your faucet or are built into a pitcher you can keep your drinking water in. Hopefully, you now have a greater appreciation for the monumental effort it takes to get water to and from your home. Now, go and enjoy a nice cold glass of tap water. Thanks for joining us on Story of Water. If you liked what you heard, why not subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast provider? Let your friends and family know about it as well. Connect with us and listen directly at www.story-of-water.com. Check out the blog or email us feedback. If you really enjoyed the show, become a Patreon supporter. Just click the donate button on our website. Remember, stay hydrated. See you next time on Story of Water.